The date is June 30th, 2024. I'm at a buddy's house, just around town, a few blocks away from where I live. He was so kind to have myself and a few of my other friends over to cook us some, I believe it was like tonkatsu, cheesy, porky, kinda fried Japanese food. It was amazing. I love Japanese food. And after we had a great dinner, I went onto my laptop to get the newest scoop as to what was going on in the NHL world. You see, my friends were having a good time watching the Professional Volleyball League on the TV. But I had to do some work because it was June 30th. The NHL free agency period would be opening up the next day, and there were a bunch of rumors as to what was going on. And the biggest thing ended up dropping. It was a news piece that I actually had to leave my friend's house to go home and immediately make a video about because it was so huge. It was that the New York Rangers would be trading away their captain and, I'm going to call him a liability here, Jacob Trouba to the Detroit Red Wings one day later. This was seen as a bananas, incredible, crazy big move. Not because Jacob Trouba is so amazing and the Wings are getting this fantastic A-plus elite guy in exchange, but because Jacob Trouba had a pretty bad end to the playoffs with the New York Rangers. The guy got absolutely turnstiled multiple times. Just a total pylon on defense in multiple big game moments. And then you add on the fact that Trouba's reputation in the past year or so has really taken a dip because of all of the physical stuff, the elbows, the headshots, etc., etc. It's been a pretty bad run for Jacob Trouba. And even though he's making some stuff happen out there, he's physical, he can produce some points. Nowadays, he's not producing the 50-point caliber seasons that he was having in Winnipeg all those years ago. And I say seasons plural, like he didn't only do that once. But when it comes to Jacob Trouba, this is a guy that was supposed to get traded to Detroit. But he said no. Now, it is September 21st, and we're reading an article from Larry Brooks from September 18th, 2024, talking about how the New York Rangers are running it back one last time. In particular, we're talking about this article because Brooks gives some new information as to what ended up happening with the rejected Jacob Trouba trade. Now, I say rejected. Does that mean that the Detroit Red Wings rejected the trade? No, they were interested. They wanted to get Trouba onto the team. It's why they were even entertaining these offers in the first place. Did the Rangers themselves reject it? No, they wanted to get this guy off of the team and clear their own cap structure of the $8 million AAV salary that Trouba possesses. So, who ended up rejecting it? Well, it was Jacob Trouba himself. Let's read the article from Larry Brooks here. The plan for the New York Rangers was not to run it back, following the Rangers' second six-game conference final defeat within 3 years. The plan, in fact, was to clear up cap space in order to remodel the club. Specifically, the plan was to move Jacob Trouba and his $8 million cap hit once the captain's no-move clause became a 15-team no-trade clause on July 1st, even if it obligated them to retain up to 25% of the contract over its final 2 years. There were multiple interested parties. The Blue Shirts were going to trade their captain, until, that is, verifiable words circulated quickly through the league that Trouba had no interest in reporting if traded anywhere. This was kind of the final nail in the coffin. Sure, the guy has a 15-team no-trade clause. Technically, he can get traded to 16, because he got a -1 because the Rangers exist in the NHL. There are 16 teams in the NHL that Trouba is allowed to get traded to, but the man himself was putting up an idea that if he was traded to any of those 16 teams, it wasn't that he would reject the trade, but it was that he would not go. He would not show up for these teams, he would not report, and he would not fulfill his duty as a player, therefore invalidating the need for any team to go out there and make a trade for him. As the Post learned from impeccable sources and reported on July 1st, Trouba's original no-move clause was set to expire with his wife, Dr. Kelly Trouba, completing her medical residency at a New York hospital. But Dr. Trouba's residency was deferred a year. The 30-year-old Rangers captain, who had welcomed a son with his wife in January, made it clear to the proper authorities that he would not leave his family behind, even while submitting his no-trade list that featured Detroit, which would have been his most likely destination. And that, I think, is one of the aspects of this entire conversation that was lost upon most of us. Hey, like, the guy is gonna get traded, this and that, but oh no, he's not gonna get traded anymore. Why? Turns out that he's a family man, and that is a quality that I could go out there and 100% respect him for, because if he set everything up, if he tried to Aaron Yeager this to the point where it all expires at the right time, it all coagulates at the same time, his contract has that no-trade clause fully moved and turned into a modified no-trade clause, at the same time his wife finishes her residency, then all of a sudden it's okay. Like, if she doesn't have the residency in New York anymore, they could just get traded somewhere, or if he does get traded, then it's a possibility that they are still able to stick together. But because her residency was deferred a year, the Rangers could not trade Trouba, because he would not leave his family behind, especially since he just had a son. This is where Larry Brooks writes, I think we would all like to believe that we'd sacrifice for our partner and family and put our career second. We all like to think we'd be Coach Taylor if Tammy Taylor were offered the job of a lifetime in Philadelphia. Trouba's instincts are wholly admirable. But at the same time, Trouba effectively turned a 5-year no-move into a 6-year no-move. I guess the Rangers and GM Chris Drury could have challenged him and could have made this into a public spectacle, but that would have been destructive. The Rangers made the best out of a sticky situation. The article then talks about how Jacob Trouba is a likable captain, he's a likable guy, and even though he isn't great, he's not going anywhere, at least for a year. That is why the Rangers are in a position where they have to run it back. And Trouba himself went out there and acknowledged that this is probably going to be the case here. Take a look at the comments made by Trouba in regards to the Rangers and the running it back narrative. In all likelihood, this will probably be the last crack for this core. I don't think that's a secret by any means. And honestly, interesting. It's kind of weird to see the captain of the team straight up say, yeah, we're not going to be able to play and be competitive after this season. I mean, Panarin went out there and responded to that idea, saying that I've not thought about it before, so I'm not thinking. Sorry, Jacob Trouba, go out there and stand up for your family, that's awesome, but please don't try to diminish the talent and abilities of Adam Fox and Artemi Panarin and Igor Shesterkin while you're still here. I mean, yeah, it's not necessarily like Trouba's going to be making any enemies by saying that this will be the last crack for this core, but I do kind of question whether or not that is accurate. Anyways, if you wanted to go back over to the Trouba trade, you had yourselves a bunch of discourse by Rangers fans for a few days ago talking about this aspect of Trouba and his deal, how he wouldn't report to any team that would trade for him, thus, as Brooks writes, turning his 5-year no-move clause into a 6-year no-move clause. This is what NYR Louis went out there and said, for your information, all your Jacob Trouba defenders are saying that this was in his contract? No, it wasn't. He was telling teams he wouldn't report to scare them away. That isn't in his contract. That's not my captain. And you have some angry Rangers fans going out there and saying, strip the captaincy away from him and give it to Chris Kreider. Trouba is beyond selfish and entirely unprofessional. This causes a bad precedent for future players the Rangers want to trade. I can't wait for the Trouba cultists to spin it into the I only want to play for the Rangers angle and not the residency issue. So you're already seeing the fallout here. Rangers fans are turning their back on Jacob Trouba, and look, maybe I'm giving a spotlight to the wrong ones. Maybe the majority of New York fans are still in love with Jacob Trouba and his game. Maybe they can acknowledge the faults, they can acknowledge the carelessness with his physicality, they can acknowledge the pylon-like moments that he has in pretty quick succession, especially in third rounds of the playoffs. They can acknowledge that he's not the perfect player. But there are a good chunk of fans that I'm seeing that are bouncing back against this idea, talking about the newest trade details and how everything's looking worse for Jacob Trouba because of his inability to report. I'm going out there and saying, hey, it's admirable, and if the Rangers are going to abide by it, they're not going to trade him away because he has these stipulations in place, then hey, if you want to view this as a scare tactic, that's totally your prerogative. But at the end of the day, it worked. The Rangers themselves did not trade Trouba away, and the Red Wings did not decide to take him on. If that's all that Trouba needed to do to make sure that his contract stays where he needs it to stay, then fair game to ya, it worked. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about these new details on the Jacob Trouba trade to the Detroit Red Wings, and how do you feel about him using his leverage, talking about how he's not going to report to other teams, to make his no-trade clause extended even further. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this British Astros 99, and bye.